Hello everybody, it's Elizabeth Harrin here, and I've got some more questions on managing multiple projects for you. Because yesterday we had a webinar on the 3 critical skills for managing multiple projects, and I talked about making sure that we understood scheduling practices, scheduling best practice. I talked about stakeholder engagement, and I talked about time management as 3 of the many skills you need in order to be able to manage multiple projects effectively. And I gave people some tips and tricks, and you can watch that video. I always point in the wrong direction. There, there it is, at girlsguidetopm.com/MMP. So you can watch the replay of that webinar there. What happened in the webinar? We had a really interesting session, I suppose. There was probably about 45 minutes of teaching time, and then we had questions, and we ran over massively. And I'm aware that people perhaps didn't get their questions answered. However, we got lots of questions and we captured them all, and so I'm back today because I want to make sure that I'm going through some more questions that people raised about the course that I'm offering on mastering multiple projects, and also about things that came up through the webinar. So I'm going to go to my document, and the first question I'm going to pick, this is one from Nurkan, who says, I hope I've said your name right, recently we work more and more in virtual environments because of the pandemic. Very, very true. What would you advise for better stakeholder engagement in this virtual working environment? Well, that's not really a question to do with managing multiple projects, although you do manage multiple stakeholders differently when you've got a multi-project environment, because you have to streamline and consolidate the way that you are engaging people. But more generally, I teach a whole stakeholder masterclass on stakeholder engagement, and I've written a book about it. So I do feel like it's something I can talk knowledgeably about. So in order to engage stakeholders in a virtual environment, you have to be very respectful of their time. You have to make sure that you know what you want from them, so that you're targeting your communications, so that you're getting the most accurate, useful responses. And then also you need to find ways to make it exciting, because frankly, we are all suffering from Zoom fatigue. I know you're watching this video, but we spend a lot of time watching people's faces on tiny screens at the moment, and making it engaging is one way to do that. So to give you some tips, things that I've got, I have my virtual Lego office. So if I don't want to be on the screen, I can have my little virtual Lego office, and there's a virtual me inside there too. So something like that, you could maybe get people to engage with your thing. I went to a conference recently, and we got given, well, recently, it feels like recently, it wasn't. We got given these. So instead of doing emojis, you can hold up, instead of doing emojis on the screen using some of the sort of hand-raising facilities that are available in your conferencing apps, you can actually have physical emojis, or you can have masks. I don't know. And you can play games. So, for example, on Google Classrooms this morning, my child was playing Guess Who games. Everybody dressed up, and they were asking questions like, who's got a headset? Who's got glasses? Who's got a hat? Who's got a scarf? And if you were not that person, you switched off your camera. So the people who were guessing, the 2 people who were playing, had the Guess Who board was made up of their classmates, really. So if you're in a big group, doing some kind of fun icebreaker, help with engagement, just to liven the mood, because it is really hard to spend so much time looking at tiny faces on screens. So for me, better stakeholder engagement is not just about being the fun team take part in. You do want your engagement to feel fun and effortless, but you also want it to be meaningful. And I use the principles of gamification. So one of the things I teach is stakeholder gamification, stakeholder in gamification, really, so that we're looking at ways that we can gamify the stakeholder experience on projects so that it is easy and people know what to expect. And we're using game mechanics to help them keep moving forward. So if game mechanics and stakeholders is something that you're interested in, then drop a comment under this video, and I'll see if I can do a training session on that at some point in the future. And I'll probably be teaching a stakeholder masterclass in September 2021. Okay, so those are a few tips for Nurkan. Let's look up another question that we got asked yesterday. Someone who just calls themselves D. He or she needs better tools to manage lots of projects. My boss is looking for excruciating detail, and I'm not used to having to be concerned with all of this. That is really interesting, actually. Do we just live with our bosses asking for excruciating detail and provide it to them, or do we not? So there is a leadership choice to be made there. People tend to do the micromanagement if they don't trust you, if they don't understand what's going on, if they are under pressure from above to justify what's happening. they will tend to micromanage and they will want loads more information. So you can address that base issue so that people are not quite so difficult to as managers, and they're not so micromanaging. They don't want all the detail. However, there might be some very valid reasons why they're expecting that level of information, and you need to find ways to provide it to them in ways that are not onerous for you. So better tools is definitely part of it. And if you are expecting to do portfolio management, portfolio level reporting, you'll need a tool that will aggregate the status of all your different projects and present it in one consolidated dashboard. The good news is there are hundreds of tools on the market that will do that. You want something that's very customizable though, because a lot of the tools that I've used in the past where you created dashboards, the dashboards were fixed on widgets that you could drag and drop and arrange. It looked pretty, but it's only useful if you've got the data that populates it. And also a lot of them are things, we had one dashboard widget which was number of open risks. I mean, that's meaningless. There could be 1,000 risks, all of which are rated extremely low priority, extremely low likelihood, extremely low urgency, and they're not going to happen for 2 years, so extremely low proximity. It's meaningless. You need the context and the narrative around it. So if you're looking for dashboarding tools, make sure that you have the underlying data and the project managers and project teams are capturing it so that you're actually presenting something useful, and that the widgets you can present are very flexible so you can customize to actually what people find is important, with enough context so that they can make smart management decisions and they're not just going, oh, look, 1,000 risks, when actually that might not be anything to be concerned about. And the two major risks haven't even been recorded by the project manager and aren't even on the dashboard. So the data in dashboards is only ever as good as what you put into it. Okay, so that is not the hard recommendation of an actual tool. I do have a service that I use that does tool recommendation. They scale the marketplace and then they come up with a short list, and they do it by speaking to you, so they're actual humans. So I can drop a link under the video in the Facebook on the Facebook group about that if people are interested in having somebody else do the heavy lifting and finding the tool. And the book I recommend often, actually, am I going to be able to lay my fingers on it? It's called this one. It's Okay to Manage Your Boss. So if you are finding yourself with a micromanaging boss who wants all the details all the time, then this is the book that has changed how I think about being managed. So, I mean, this is really old copy now, but I have actually bought it for other people in the past as a gift. It's like, yeah. What does that tell you about me as a friend, that I buy people books about management? Anyway, but that's a really useful book for understanding how better to deal with different types of difficult line managers, including the micromanaging boss. So maybe that will help D. Okay, what other questions did we have last night that we did not get a chance to talk about? Can my company pay for the course? Yes, absolutely. That is certainly no problem at all. I can send out corporate invoices with all the company registration, VAT type information that you need. So that's very easy. Just get in touch and you can sort that out. Do you need any software? Well, we've talked about software just now in terms of what software is useful for presenting dashboards for multiple reporting. But in terms of the course that I teach on Mastering Multiple Projects, no. I mean, I use all the templates that I give to you are in Google Docs. They're either PDFs, Google Docs, Google Slides, not Slides, Google Sheets, and then you can take those and adapt them to your own environment. So if you prefer to do them in Excel, download them and use them in Excel. If you prefer to use a workflow engine, or you have a management tool that you're using that you love, then you can take the concepts from the templates and transfer them to the tool that makes the most sense for you. Because there's no point in having most of your product, most of your processes in one tool and then one Google spreadsheet over here to do something different. You might as well consolidate. But they're very easy if you wanted to do that. So I've created the most simple resources I can that will make them the most tailorable as you like to any particular software that you happen to be using, or none. Because as I said in the webinar, I do a lot of my project management with basically a Gantt chart, Microsoft Project, and spreadsheets. Because I know it sounds very low tech, and it is, but my stakeholders need that. And I find it's much easier to work in a way that suits the majority of people, and doesn't mean I have to create all my information in a project management software tool, and then have to extract it all into a format I can share with stakeholders. So it's really very much about your own organisational culture and the kind of situation that you find yourself in. All right, Sandra says, how can I be highly organised on projects? What's the best way to organise myself with meetings, actions, progress reporting, and etc.? What are the best tools to capture meeting notes, plans, actions, progress reports? She uses multiple tools and gets herself all confused. Yes. I have one workbook which captures actions, which is all the stuff I need for action tracking, risks, changes, issues, dependencies, contacts, key communications, milestones, stuff like that. That's my RAID log, which you can get if you go to shop.girlsguidetopm.com. There's also a budget spreadsheet that I do keep separately. And the reason I keep that separate, even though it could just be another tab, is because the RAID log gets sent out to people and the budget I prefer not to. I don't mind sharing the budget, and I encourage people to share project budgets with the team, but I like the idea that I get to choose how often and who gets to see that, and then I can share it on a needs to know kind of basis, rather than it just being an attachment, accidentally an extra sheet whenever I'm sending out the weekly actions. So the best tools, I mean, this is so difficult because people always say, and I got another email about it this morning, what tool do you recommend? My brain does not work the same way as your brain does. And it doesn't work the same way as the person who's sitting next to you who's trying to manage her projects. So tools are so personal, and the great news is there's so many of them. So if you are a Jamboard kind of whiteboard person, you can have Google Jamboard for free. If you are a full-on enterprise work breakdown structure earned value management time person, you can get Primavera P6. And there's the whole spectrum of stuff in between sticky notes on a piece of paper through to enterprise scheduling tools for multi-million-pound contracts with full-on capacity planning, resource management, work breakdown structure, control account management, all the kind of stuff that you do for earned value, and full-on contract management. And then you probably want somewhere that's in between something. There's thousands of different tools out in the marketplace. So for me, I can tell you what I do. I use a combination of notebooks, a Gantt chart, and spreadsheets. I mean, it's not rocket science. I use other tools because I have to, because clients demand it. So I also use Plutio, I use Monday.com, I use Slack, I use Skype as well for online chat. And in the past, I've used tools like ITM Platform. What else have we used? MS Project. I love MS Project. SharePoint. And there's other tools I recommend, or I like, that I don't use very often, like Liquid Planner, Genius Project. And there's a new one from the company that makes Brightwork SharePoint solutions. So there's a lot of different tools that are out there. And it's all of them. And the easiest thing to do is just get my free guides to how to manage project management software, how to choose project management software. So that is at shop.girlsguidetopm.com, and you can get the free PDF. It talks you through how to make your choice about what tools are best for you. So streamlining, in order to deal with the confusion, to speak to Sandra's point, getting herself all confused with having too many tools, is do not have too many tools. I know that sounds really basic, and she's probably sitting there going, oh, that's not what I wanted her to say. But I know the feeling. If you've got something in your notebook, you've got something on OneNote, you've got something on a Post-it note on the wall, you've got something in Outlook because you're using your calendar to record tasks, and then you've also got emails coming in, and then you've got an action log, and then you've got project management software. It's too much. So about once a week, actually, I consolidate everything so that it's all in one place. Anything immediate term that needs to be done in the next 48 hours goes onto paper so that it's in my face. So I think the downside with electronic tools is that you don't see them. Whereas if I have a piece of paper and I leave it next to the kettle, I see it 10 times a day, and then it reminds me. Whereas if I don't have my task management app open, I don't see it. So anything that's immediate goes on paper. Anything that is slightly long-term or needs to be done on a certain date either goes in my calendar or it goes into Plutio. Those are the tools that I use. Okay, Sandra, I hope that was a bit rambly. But hopefully there was something in there that you can take. What else did we have? Let me do one more today, and then we may well come back and do some more questions tomorrow, because this is already 14 minutes. Okay, Annie says, perspective. A recent failure has got her thinking about how she manages. Oh, that's a shame that it was a failure, but I think what is important to think of is that failure is an opportunity to learn, isn't it? It's a gift. And if you can look at it positively, then we can take some lessons from that and put them into how we do things in the future. So forget about the fact that mistakes were made. Focus on the fact that you can learn from those and you can do things differently in the future. The great thing about mistakes is that you're also, in there somewhere, will be a nugget of something you did right. And sometimes what other people perceive to be failure, you're holding in your heart thinking, but I did the right thing because I followed my values, I followed my ethics, I followed what I believe is appropriate professional working behaviour, and the company didn't want that. And that tells you something as well. So I don't know what type of failure that Annie May has had, but the perspective there is internal as well. It has the response to this failure by my organisation. Does it fit with what I consider to be my professional values and the way that I choose to run my work life? And if it does, then great, they supported you, you're aligned, perfect. And if it doesn't, if you're in there thinking, I'm trying to do the right thing, I am trying to live by my professional code of conduct, and you still think I've failed, even though in my heart I know I've done it right, then that is telling me something, that there is a disconnect between how you choose to run your life and the values that you hold dear to you and what your company thinks is, acceptable. And maybe that disconnect becomes so significant that actually the working culture is not appropriate. It's not a good fit for where you need to be. So failure's got so many different layers to it that as you start to unpick it and take what you can from it, hopefully there'll be some nuggets of goodness that you can uncover to think about what you're going to do differently or where you're going to be differently, if indeed you think that way. Okay, so there's questions from Laura, Thomascia, Jodie. I'm working out the answer to that one because that's a very specific question for you. So I will probably come back in the next couple of days, do another video, make sure I've caught up with all the questions. And if you have a question about managing multiple projects, either in general or about the Mastering Multiple Projects course, which you can get from our link, girlsguidetopm.com/MMP, then by all means do drop me an email, or I've got live chat on the site at the moment, so you can come over to this page, Girls Guides PM. I always point them away. It's so frustrating. MMP, and you can chat to me there if I'm online, which will not be many more hours for today, and hopefully I'll get some time to pick up messages and things over the weekend, because I'm excited to welcome the new starters into the Mastering Multiple Projects course. And if you want to be part of that cohort, we have our kick-off call, which is everyone's welcome to, self-study students and VIP students alike. Everybody is welcome to join the call on the 15th of February, which is kind of an onboarding and orientation meeting so that we get set up for success, and then we go from there. So hopefully I will see some of you there inside the course, and if you've got any questions, let me know. Have a great day. Bye.